Well, hello and welcome to Graduate Space Radio. How you doing today, Dr. Beth?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad we could do this. I feel like this is definitely one of the longest the longest waiting interviews. So I appreciate, I was sharing for everybody, we connected last year and then things get kind of busy and emails got jumbled. And here, I guess a couple of weeks ago, you wrote me back and was like, would you like to do this? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And here we are.
I'm so grateful for that opportunity. It's terrific.
Yeah, thanks. I thought if you would like to start, to just tell the people a little bit about yourself, that'd be a great place to begin.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Beth Frates, and I am a physician. I work primarily in lifestyle medicine now, and you may be wondering, what is lifestyle medicine? It's a burgeoning area of medicine that uses prescriptions in exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress resiliency, social connection, and substance use elimination or moderation, depending on what's needed. And we write these prescriptions for health, well-being, and thriving. Turns out these prescriptions can also treat many chronic conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and even issues with weight can be helped with this type of medicine, lifestyle medicine. I myself got into this area and even medicine, actually becoming a physician, because my dad had a heart attack and stroke. So a lot of my work in the past years, since 1987 or something, has been around figuring out how we can live and thrive and prevent health setbacks like I experienced with my dad.
That's beautiful. I love prevention. I guess, obviously I don't have a doctorate, but, I try to prescribe gratitude as a daily practice to everyone, for what I do. So obviously, again, I don't have a PhD, but, it's a healthy lifestyle. I partake in gratitude every day, and I assist others in hoping to create a space that allows people to be grateful. So I completely feel you. I think the prevention, obviously, like you're saying, these things you can do besides taking medicine or going to a doctor, obviously have a huge effect on your well-being, how you're feeling. And obviously you've studied all this. You understand the full mechanics of it, where I'm just a very light, I'm a top surface type guy. I don't have the background, but I definitely agree that prevention and, for somebody that wants to, just kind of look at how do you, for example, if you're walking around and you're just seeing the negativity all around you and you're seeing the bad, you're only looking at the ugly, like what, that's where I go, well, what can you be grateful for? It's just a misdirection of thought, right? I'm trying to take somebody out of a negative space and put him in a positive space. And like you said, that could be, you do that in many different ways. There's different ways to do that. My tool obviously is gratitude, but, like I said, somebody taking a walk or going for exercise or just, with your, actually, I know I'm just kind of I feel like I'm kind of going, I wanted to step back and just say real quick, before I moved on, I wanted to thank our friend Sean Anderson for connecting us. I like to step in and go, I like to express gratitude for the connect, I'm obviously grateful we're here connecting, but I like to step back and go, how did this happen? And share a little gratitude. So, I have doing two layers with me. I could go, my friend, my mentor, Bobby Kuntz. He just shared Sean Anderson with me. He was like, you should reach out to this guy. This guy would be a great person for you to interview. He definitely gets gratitude. And the next thing I know, I'm talking with Sean, and then he did a wonderful interview for my website. And then I just, he was just such a friendly guy. I think it was weeks later, I think I wrote and I just said, do you know any people that might be interested in, being interviewed? And he was like, sure. How many would you like me to, basically he was like, yes, how many would you like to start with? And he started lifting some people, and I said, well, that sounds, give a group of 4 people. And you were one of the people that was in that group. So that's how, and he said some wonderfully beautiful words about you that I was trying to share with you last time we talked. You're like, no, I don't want to blush over it. But he had some amazing, beautiful words to say about you. And what a great person to connect people. So that's my experience. And then you told me that you met him through Twitter. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And I was going to say, there's some people who are just magnets for gratitude, right? Magnets for positivity. And I think Sean is one of those. And I did meet him on Twitter. Interestingly, I used to avoid social media for a long time. I wasn't on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or anything. And then it was really April of 2017 where my department at Harvard in Spaulding Rehab Hospital, where the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at Harvard Medical School, they encouraged us to get on Twitter, actually, and to share our work, our views, our research with the public, and also create collaborations with colleagues throughout the country and even globally. And I must tell you, I was very hesitant and almost resistant in the beginning to enter this space of social media. But I met people like Sean and now have opportunities like this with you. I've started collaborating with people at Oxford I never would have met. Of course, they're in England, and others in Greece. And it has been a remarkable opportunity. And yes, people who are like Sean, and they express a lot of gratitude on Twitter. I haven't met him off Twitter, but on Twitter, and I'm sure off in his case, they do become these magnets for others that prioritize and enjoy gratitude.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And I remember talking with him and like even hearing him on another podcast, and his things like, his whole things, he wakes up and he's like, his intention is, I'm going to help 3 people today. Whatever that is, and when I've got a chance to just chat with him for a half hour, 45 minutes, I know, for one thing, I'm very grateful because I'm like, this guy has got a world of knowledge. He's given me his attention. He's given me his focus, and he wants to be here. Right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it shows.
Point. And I do want to circle back to something you said for the people who are listening in today and perhaps to the recording later. You said something like, well, I don't have a PhD. And I would just want to express that there's wisdom, deep wisdom in all of us. And I will tell you that the greatest teacher I had in the area of gratitude was, in fact, my grandmother, grandmother, who didn't have a high school education here in the U.S. She came from Vassara, Greece when she was 18 and immigrated here to East Boston and was with my grandfather. They had an arranged marriage and they started a family and they started a restaurant, a Greek restaurant, and they did really, really well and they worked really, really hard. And I grew up with this as my model, but more importantly, with my grandma Rose, constantly expressing gratitude. She was grateful. You would go and I would go to her home for holidays or just for visits. I was from New York, so it would be a ride, and we'd get to grandma's house, and she would constantly be happy and express her happiness. She would be grateful for things like, Elizabeth, the sun, it's shining. It's shining. I mean, I can see her right now in my mind. Of course, she's passed away, but I can see her right now just expressing the gratitude for the sunshine. And she had a peach tree out in her backyard that actually grew peaches. I don't know anybody else who could grow peaches in East Boston, but she grew these peaches, and she was grateful for family. She was grateful for friends, for food, for opportunity. She was grateful for the joy of being able to walk to the store with me. She lived close to her grocery store, and I would go with her. And just that walk with her was joyful. She was grateful to see people that she knew at the store. And when we entered the store, the store clerks would run over to her, Rosie, what do you need today? And, oh, thank you for your help. And they'd help her find what she needed. And I remember being in awe of this woman, my grandma Rose, who just exuded love, loving kindness, and gratitude, and really was a great teacher of gratitude. Again, I'm just bringing this up because there's no PhD for her in gratitude. Right. It was just her being. It was her way. It was Rose. And I think there are a lot of people like that who don't have formal education in psychology or in gratitude, or like me in medicine. They don't, but they are remarkable teachers for us, and their wisdom is deep.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your grandmother Rose. I love that so much. My grandmother, I feel very similar to. She, I don't know. I never met I don't have a memory of my birth grandparents, but my mom's dad remarried, and that became my grandmother. And she's the only memory I have of my grandmother is grandma. And she actually passed away this last year. And I really, with her, like, I have wonderful memories of her just being loving and present and cooking and just family. But in the later years, my grandfather passed away. I have, memories of us just spending time together, just the two of us, which wasn't the way it really was. That didn't occur until after my grandfather passed away. It was, I'm going to go visit grandma now. It's just me and her. And I just appreciated that she was so present with me. I felt like, she'd lived such a long life. She'd buried 2 husbands, had 2 different families, but yet when I was with her, like, she was with me. I felt that obvious presence you get with somebody who is really with you. They're not wanting to be somewhere else. They're not caught up. Was just such a beautiful thing that I strive for. And yeah, she passed away this last year, but she taught me so much just in being present. And even I was sharing this morning with a friend, when I started my gratitude practice 5 years ago, we did gratitude campaigns, letters for people. And we did a week for my grandmother, and it was fantastic. So think about this, right? So you're talking about 5 years ago, I got people, cousins, and people to write letters to her. And when I knew she was close to passing, because all the stuff with COVID was going on, you were not allowed to go to the homes or anything. Her daughter reached out to me and said, well, Chris, if you want to come see grandma, you can see her tomorrow. And I immediately was like, okay, I'm going to get these letters. I'm going to print them up in big typeface just so I can give them to her, maybe read one to her, And I got all the stuff together. And the next morning I'm getting my shoes on, and my aunt, she texted me and she's like, Chris, if you come today, you can only come for like 5 or 10 minutes. And I took a moment, and I was like, that's okay. And I wrote her, I was like, that's okay. Cause I realized, I don't need a lot of time. I was thinking, I just want to do this. And then my aunt wrote me again, and she expressed that this now is not a good time. And I was obviously deflated. And, I inquired about when I could go later, and she wasn't sure. And my grandmother passed away that night. And it was really sad that I didn't get to see her. That's more me being selfish. It isn't like, I knew I didn't need, there wasn't a necessity. We loved each other. It wasn't like last words, but I thought, well, that really stinks. I had this thing in my mind, but my sister, then my sister allowed me to appreciate this situation where she said, you and grandmother loved each other. You didn't need to see her on death's bed. You didn't need that. Right. She's like, you have a memory of her the way she was, and you didn't need to see that. And I completely agree with her. I didn't need that. And I was even talking this morning thinking, I didn't need to see my mom in the hospice bed after she passed away. I didn't need to see that. I totally didn't need to see that. You know what I mean? So I was even refraining this morning going, well, I'm really grateful in this situation, even though I was so gun-ho to get there, that I didn't get there, and that was obviously my grandmother saying, don't have Chris come. That was a direct, that was directly from her. But speaking to a gift she gave me specifically out of the situation, so I come back around to it, is that day, like the cousin, the grandchildren started posting things on Facebook, and I already had these letters, right? I already had the emails up. So what I was doing, I was copying, I was pasting them in these posts. And what really clicked to me, which really amazed this experience was, when you do share gratitude, it's a really beautiful moment you create. And if you can make it something tangible like a letter, it becomes something that can cross time. But so in this situation, I know this is exactly what happened. I know it is. One of the grandchildren, they maybe have a memory of writing this, maybe, right? They don't remember what they wrote, but as soon as they read it, it was a whole new memory, a whole new effect, a whole new moment to be grateful, right? Like, and that's the power, and that's what made me go, the power of like when you create these, I call it gratitude art, are these gratitude moments that can be shared, from anybody to anybody, like it has the potential to come back at you, create a whole new memory, and allow that love to come back up, and again, me reading those letters, and I know putting those letters down, it's powerful. That's, to me, that's my own little doc. My practice is if I can bring around these things that, how can I in my life incorporate gratitude back in that I've already expressed, or things that, in the daily practice. So, she taught me that. I think it's a powerful thing, and I'm always working back in my mind is, I want to create the moment, right? I want to insist to create the moment, but I want the moment to land. And then now I'm in the back of my head, like, I want the moment to live forever. I want to assist in that process, right? So,
that's beautiful. I want the moment to live forever. Chris, that was all very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that with me today, with everyone listening. It brought up so many things for me, and I'm thinking for others that are with us in this space right now. May I share a couple of things that brought up for me, right?
Please.
When you were speaking. One is an academic piece, which is that research is showing us that writing, the act of writing your gratitude. So, dear mom or Mrs. Smith, or to whomever you're writing, dear, I am so grateful for you and for what you have done and for your love. And while you're writing this, you actually get a great deal of benefit. Some suggest that this may be increasing our serotonin levels. This may be increasing our dopamine levels, which are all feel-good neurotransmitters in the brain. And just that act of writing does that. Now, you may know the quote, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like having a gift and not unwrapping it. Right. Well, what's interesting is that simply writing that out for yourself is a gift to yourself, the writing of it. Now there's that other piece of it, which is the handing it to somebody else. And then that person getting to experience the joy of the other person's expression of gratitude. There's that piece of it, which is lovely when you do have that opportunity to share with another your own emotions around appreciation for what that person is to you, has done for you, means to you. That's a beautiful thing. But let us not forget that the act of writing itself, the act of expressing that gratitude has many, many benefits. If we end up sharing it and we have the opportunity to share it live or not. The second thing I want to bring up is not academic, it's personal. And I guess I started with my great grandma Rose sharing her being, which was such a grateful being, and me, even as a small child, wanting to emulate that and be like Grandma Rose. Sometimes it takes a setback for us to really put things in focus and to start being or becoming that which we strive to be. So for me, that was my dad's heart attack and stroke, which I already mentioned to you. I put the world in a whole different perspective because none of us in my family up until that time had any health setback. So that experience of seeing Dad, who was the pillar of strength, one day, and then in the hospital with IVs and nasal prongs and a lot of different tubes in my mind. I wasn't a physician. I was 18 years old, and I just know he couldn't move one side of his body, and that included his face, his arm, his leg. Couldn't speak, couldn't smile. And tubes, in my mind, tubes everywhere, machines hooked up, beeping, going on. And that moment on, for him, for me, for my mom, for my family, it changed everything. And we became very grateful for every day that we were all together. We were all functional. We could walk, we could talk, we could smile. And for me, it changed my relationship with my dad. It changed my dad's entire life. I mean, he made a complete recovery, I just want to say. And he also made a complete lifestyle change. So the personal story here is that I started feeling such gratitude for him every single year he was with me. So his birthday was in April, and I started that moment at age 18 to write a gratitude birthday card to him. And I did that every year. I said, I am so grateful that you are here with us for another year, that we were blessed with your presence. And in this year, you experienced graduation with me. You experienced cross country. We actually drove cross country together, my parents and I, when I was like 23. Anyway, whatever happened that year, I chronicled it in the card, and I put emotion, not just what happened, but I remember writing things like, that was a highlight for me because when we were laughing hysterically at the restaurant in Utah, I'll never forget it. And this continued on until he passed away in 2012. And I enjoyed writing it. And I didn't need research to tell me that I am expressing gratitude and experiencing an increase in neurotransmitters that are feel-good neurotransmitters. I didn't really need the research. It's interesting that it's there now, pointing that way. But what I want to say is, so my dad did pass away, and my brother and I were cleaning up the house, and also, by the way, looking for the will, which apparently we couldn't find anywhere. But anyway, that's a different story. So we were looking all over for the will, and we were going through Dad's closets, and my brother suddenly says, "Oh, what's this?" And it was one of his file systems. He had a lot of different filing systems. And he said, wait, what is this? And then he said, these are all cards. These are cards. Wait, they're from you. And then I said, wait, let me see that. And I looked at his file cabinet, his file system. And he had every card since 1980, I think it was 7 to 2012, lined up in order. In fact, he had the last one from 2012 in there at the top. And I had just written it in April, and it was at that time, September. Now, when Dad got these cards from me, he was always grateful. Thank you so much. Oh, I love this. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. And a big hug. And I never knew he was keeping them and filing them away. And when I learned that, it was just a whole other kind of connection that I had with him, and with gratitude, realizing that we don't always know the power of the card, the words, maybe when they're reviewed and reread, and what kind of impact they may have on the person who's receiving them.
Wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Wow.
Came from your beautiful story.
Oh, Oh, wow. When you were talking there, the thing that I've learned, because I have my situation with my mom is I wrote a letter to her on my birthday 4 months before she passed away. So we're on different spectrums of this writing our parents. But what I've learned, and you just spoke volumes to it, is, gratitude stacks. It's stacking all the time. Just from my story example, my example is like, if I sit down, I wrote a letter, right? That was one stack. And then my mom read the letter. That was another stack. And then we were together, and that was a separate stack. And then my dad read the letter because I put it on Facebook, and my sister read the letter, and people read the letter. These are all stacks, stacks. Technically this moment is a stack of that letter. It's still stacking. The only reason that, straight up, I wouldn't had started my website. If my mom, if I hadn't written that letter, I never would have started the website, which led me to here, to the Doors, to the Ear, and to Sean Anderson, to here we are, it literally is stacking in this moment. And I love when you're talking about your dad. What I love so much is like, you did from 18 on, you were writing these letters, and each one was stacking on top of the other one because it was something you were doing. And then he passes away, and you find all these, and you have a whole new memory of these. He passed away, but now it just stacked again, and now you're sharing it too. So I can't even imagine you giving him these letters, you not knowing he has them, and then there they are, like you found buried treasure where you weren't even looking for. Like what, Matt? That's magical. The finding that he not only that he kept them, but there they are, and you can read them, right? Like, wow, so beautiful.
It really is. It was a remarkable experience. And I will say, just going from the other side now, when I teach or I work with individuals on behavior change and lifestyle medicine, and somebody writes me a thank you note, I collect those. I feel like my dad. I started collecting before I found out that my dad was also a collector of these things. So I collect them in a box I have right on my desk, and I do look at them again. And of course, many students now are emailing. So I also have emails that I actually like to print out, because I'm back in that I'm still paper person. I know that it's not the best for the environment and for trees, but I will look at those letters, and I will feel so much warmth just from reading them over again. And they're inspirational. They help me to move on and move forward again and again each year with a new class. So receiving, that's one thing, is I gave, right, to my
right.
But receiving these letters from students or clients, it's really so powerful. So I think hopefully people get both experiences, where you're able to express it in a letter, right, your own gratitude, and also you're able to receive it in a way. And in this, of course, could be verbal. This could be over the phone. There were so many ways to express gratitude. I think the written word, verbal word, that's all powerful. I mean, some people even write poems for others, or songs for others, and these can be just life-changing, because you say, oh, that person sees me in this light and appreciates these strengths that I have, and it helps you move forward.
This last year I've been thinking a lot about, how, because all I want to do is be a catalyst for gratitude. And honestly, just being kind to someone, is being a catalyst for gratitude, showing up on time, or letting people, let they exist, or just being quiet. Obviously there's the more straightforward, you can have conversations about gratitude. Do you want to cut to the chase? Or just giving somebody a sandwich or anything. It's like, but the cool thing is, it's like when you become a catalyst for gratitude, you're allowing people to be in the space with it where they can experience it. And that's its own way. And then obviously, like you said, receiving and giving, that's my way, my way of being grateful for somebody is showing up for them, or being kind to them, or listening to them, creating that space. I think, obviously I was talking to someone this morning. It's like, I love the fact that you're keeping these letters people are giving you. Again, like keeping a journal, gratitude journal is really great. And that's like your own thoughts, which is great. But the more, if you could keep letters that you wrote to people and letters that you've received, that's like, that's such a step up, because you're creating moments with people. You can't, alone, these things can't exist. It takes this other person, it takes an experience and a moment. I love, so I never even thought about that. So it's like, it's not a gratitude journal. It's like a gratitude. I don't know what you'd call that, but it's like your gratitude scrapbook. It's like a gratitude scrapbook, or something like that. That way we got to be able to go, we get and receive. But how much more powerful is if you could we see these things come in, they could be little anything, and we put them somewhere we can find them, right? Because that's the most important thing, is somewhere we can see them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with printing it out, Beth. I think if a use of paper is printing out a letter, it's going to remind you of something good. Then I think that's better than 99% of the things that are being printed on paper.
Right. And as you were speaking, I was also now struck with a different thought, which is sometimes the gratitude is simply expressed verbally in the moment. And taking these opportunities to do that can also be so, so powerful and memorable. So I was thinking about a time when I was teaching at the medical school, and I can see this now. I can see this whole image happening like it was yesterday. It was many, many years ago. It must have been now at least 15 years ago now, what I'm going to share with you. But this expression of gratitude that I received, I can feel it even today. And it wasn't written down. And how is it staying in my memory? Sometimes something sparks it, like this conversation with you, and this memory replays. So I'm replaying it. And there's a hippocampus, the area in the brain that's really involved with consolidating memories. And I'm replaying it. So I'm now consolidating it yet again, and then verbally sharing it with you, which is a time when I was teaching. And, medical school can be very intense, and the students are under a lot of pressure at times. And at this particular time when I was teaching, had a small group of 8 students for about 8 weeks. And we were going over cases, and I got to know them fairly well. And this one student was changing. I'm not a psychiatrist. But her behavior was changing. It was our last class. Everybody was stressed. The exam was coming up. She was leaving, coming back in the middle of the class. Looks to me teary, but not actually crying. But if you look closely, you think that maybe she was tearing and maybe she's a little red, but you don't want to look too much. You don't want to call attention because she's obviously trying to manage something, and we're in the middle of class. And something struck me that class, I guess, because of what was going on. And I just said to her, call her Michelle. That's not her name. But anyway, call her Michelle. Michelle, do you mind staying a little bit after? Do you have time? And she said yes. And we dug into what was going on. And she was very sad. Actually considering taking her own life. And we got to that point in our conversation and got her help immediately, brought her to the health services. Now that is a tough part of the story. The good part of the story is that she took time off. She got help. She figured things out. And I teach a lot of different students. I did lose track of her. I knew that she went and got help and was grateful about that. I would think about her occasionally. And then a year or two later, I was going in to teach the same course, new students. And teaching can be very demanding, right? It can, because it's not only that you're teaching the material, but you do get involved in the students' lives. And well, obviously, and specifically in that one, but that happens at different levels with pretty much every student. So I was tired, and I had kids, and I was writing a book, and I was saying, what am I doing with this teaching again for 8 weeks, coming in and doing this teaching again? And I was walking up the stairs feeling really like
I don't know if I can do this,
Mm.
much longer. I've got a lot of other things that I'm doing, and I just don't know that I can spend this time with these students and do this teaching much. This might be, my last go of this. And I remember I'm walking up the stairs, and then I'm showing my ID, because you need your ID to get in. I'm showing my ID, and suddenly this person comes from behind. Dr. Frates, like, literally lifts me up. She was bigger. I'm not that
Mhm.
big. Like, lifts me up, gives this huge bear hug, and says, thank you so much. That conversation we had at the end of that class, I got help. I'm all better. I figured things out. I cannot thank you enough for keeping me after class, listening to my story, and leading me to help. And how we bumped into each other. It's a big school. How
Right.
we bumped into each other that day at that time, when I was just thinking to myself, can I do this?
Right. Right.
And that expression of gratitude was something to me that I will never ever forget. I will never forget that moment. Never forget that hug. I will never forget that day, that time in my life. And so I'm grateful that this particular student thrived and got better, and also took that opportunity to just throw out her gratitude in every form she was comfortable doing.
Mm.
So even though we don't have that written down anywhere, that's not a card, right? But it's definitely got a place in my heart. It's got a place in my hippocampus, in my brain. And I just don't think I'll ever forget it.
Mm.
With over 50 different perspectives and stories on gratitude, this book captures what most books don't. The secret sauce is in the number of voices and stories where you'll be sure to find a personal connection to so many as I did. A really excellent book, David Freeman. Found exclusively on Amazon.com.
Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. That's so beautiful. I love how it's just, I was, to say you were being a catalyst for gratitude. You were being present, and you noticed this person because you were being present and you weren't everywhere else in your mind as we can be. You just noticed something was off because you're who you are. And then you gave the attention, you gave this woman attention, focus. And wow, that's, and then there she is showing up at this time you're feeling down, this magnet to feel like right at that moment where you're like, what am I doing here? And like, oh, this is why I'm here. I'll give you a reminder right now.
You can't explain how those things happen. I do want to circle back to that really important point you made, which is about being present. When we're present, we can let our inner wisdom and true beauty out, and we can share it with the world. But it's really hard to do when you're not fully there and fully present. And I think this mindfulness training really goes so well with gratitude. I've taken different mindfulness trainings, now over the years: mindfulness-based stress reduction, Herb Benson's relaxation response, meditation, a lot of different ways to be present and in the moment. And I think that in itself is a gift, to learn how to put everything away and just be where you are in that moment, and be open to whatever that moment is going to bring you.
Yeah, it's I'm going to have on the podcast later this month, Hector Garcia, who wrote a book called Itchy Go Itchy. And it's basically, it's about the Japanese tea ceremony. And they say that in that phrase before they start, just to remind themselves that this is special. This will never happen again. And it's that idea of, it's a custom they have to bring themselves to the present moment. And the book is spectacular. So I'm so excited to have him on, but I just love, it's that idea, like what intentionally can we do so that we can be here? It's like, what can you do to be here? My mindset's like, okay, the future hasn't happened. It's an idea, right? When it occurs, it's not the future. I don't want to be bogged down by the past. This is where the magic is. So if you can just make a statement that allows the other person to know this is special, and I do know every moment technically will never happen again. And that's why it's unique, right? That's why it's special. So any more reminders to bring us to the present moment. That's why I really love these conversations like I'm having with you, because, if we were at a coffee shop talking, there would be 1,000,001 things going on. It would never be this focused. You know what I mean? Like we can actually really be, I feel like this allows two people to really be present. Right. They're showing up, so, I'm completely with you. I was thinking, just spring off your story about your student, remind me of another gratitude story. When I started building my first website after I had this, my question was, how can I initiate people to have this experience? I started going to Starbucks, like how there's like 20 Starbucks. I chose one of them, and I started going there every 6 a.m. every morning, working on my website, talking to people about my experience, sharing my story with my mother. That was actually my first gratitude practice, was building this website and thinking, and how can I initiate people? Wow. And a lot of magic occurred out of that. There's a lot I could dig into, people I met and where that went. But what I'm going to say in this moment was, again, so I chose a Starbucks that was like 20 miles from where I was living. So I didn't choose you know what I mean? I made a choice, this one I went to. So I'm just saying this specific one. And one morning, I'm sitting there because I sat at the big table, at 6 a.m, so people would come and go. And there's a guy sitting at the table, and I don't know who he is. And I said hi to him, and, we started chatting, and, I think I must have asked him what he did. And he said that he was a cancer doctor. And I believe I pivoted to, I can't remember exactly who asked the next question, but I came to the realization that this was my mom's cancer doctor. This was Dr. Williams. It'd been almost a year later, and I was sitting. Yeah, it was almost a year later. It was probably like 9 months later after she passed away. And I didn't know it was him when I sat down, but then, like I said, again, there he was. And it was just, he's like, oh, I knew who you were. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know. And, we had this beautiful conversation, and so from that, so a couple of cool things here. One of the, and I wrote about this in my book, but one of the most amazing, when my mom was in their last couple of weeks or last month of her life, I said, obviously there were bad experiences, but there were really good experiences. And one of the best experiences and memories I have of this traumatic moments was the day that they were going to tell my mom that medically they couldn't do anything more. Dr. Williams sat down with us there in the hospital room with me and my dad, my sister, and my brother-in-law. And this is what he said. He said, he looked at my mom, and after he said they just medically can't do anything, his whole thing was he wasn't God, so he would never give anybody a timetable, which I thought was beautiful. But he said this, he said, you're not dead yet. He said, to quote Monty Python, she doesn't know Monty Python, you're not dead yet, and we don't mourn the living. And it was so beautiful. It was and it came from, he was perfect because he cared about her. It was such a perfect thing to say, just to go, be here now. Don't mourn this person. It was so much said in so few words. It was like, we'll have he didn't have to say, we'll have all the time in the world or mourn her later. You know what I mean? But that's what it meant. It's like, don't sit here and act like she's dead. We don't mourn the living. This is you're alive. We don't know what's going to happen. And that was such a beautiful, beautiful moment in such a freaking ugly mess of moments, right? But it was such a beautiful moment. And one last thing I want to share about him. I knew my dad loved this man so much. And I talked to Dr. Williams. I said, look, I need to surprise my dad with you. I need to do this. So I actually set up, it was sometime a month or two later, I made a lie saying we were going to meet somebody else for dinner. And I set up where Dr. Williams walks in, sits down with us for an hour and a half, and magic. My dad, after we left, this is the conversation. He's like, wow, that was amazing. He's like, I think I've only been surprised 3 times in my life. And then we had a conversation about the other 2. He's like, this is what a gift, right? And it's because of this man, Dr. Williams. So anyways, just
those
things, right?
That's a great story.
Yeah, man, I love that guy. And I got to surprise my dad again because I was writing the book. So I wrote to Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams did a short video for my dad's birthday, October 27th. And when I saw the video I had that day, I wrote him back and said, we're giving him an Apple TV and we have these other things, but you know what he's going to remember? He's going to remember this video you just showed for him. So talk about, anyways, this love, total love.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I think when you talk about gratitude, you're talking about love, right? I mean, that's a lot of the conversation and a lot of
for sure.
Right? It comes from the heart. It comes from love. And I think actually a big piece of this might be when you love yourself and you learn to love yourself, you're actually far more open to expressing gratitude and receiving gratitude. I think it's hard for people that aren't in the space of loving themselves to be open to this. Then again, gratitude can perhaps open the door for people to begin the journey of self-love and appreciation, right? First, gratitude for self,
right?
For where you've come from, the obstacles you've gotten beyond, and your own strengths. Each of us has unique strengths. So starting by feeling gratitude for your own strengths and gifts and talents, and then starting to use those to make the world a better place in some way, because you're so grateful for what you have and what you've been given. And I think maybe it all really goes back to love and feeling love for yourself, feeling love for others. And I think feeling love for self can help feel love for others. And I think others loving you can help you love yourself. So the gratitude, I guess, kind of goes full circle in the space of love.
I completely agree. And, you know, I was interviewing my friend Dino Sutter last year, and I asked him, what does gratitude mean to you? And he said, it means I am enough. He was quoting Renee Brown, I am enough. And I was like, yeah, there it is. Loving yourself. You know, gratitude is for, you know, it should exactly start with you. You know, in my book, I had my friend Medea wrote a letter to her. The gratitude essay that she chose was a letter to herself. Wow. Not to forget to appreciate who she was, her strengths and her fault. And, you know what I mean? And I'm completely with you. I have this practice I call gratitude cubed, where if you are in a grateful state and you love yourself, you have to be in a grateful state. You got to love yourself. You can look back and say, whatever happened is okay. It's okay because I'm here. If I appreciate where I'm at, I have to take the good with the bad. You know, and go, I love who I am. I'm grateful for where I am. It's all okay. It's all okay. Mm-hmm. which can be a tough thing to say, you know, sometimes, but when you get into a grateful state, it all kind of, I don't know, it's almost like putting on prescription glasses. Everything kind of comes clear and you're like, it's okay. I can see all, you know, obviously this was a dip, but I can see that this dip, you know, like we're saying with the letter of gratitude, or, you know, these dips, they lead you to where you are and who you are. You become who you are through these traumatic moments, you know.
Right. And that almost leads us full circle to like my dad. And when I said, oh, you need this health setback to really kind of sometimes get you in the moment and get you to really appreciate what life has given you. So that was making me think about when you just shared. I was thinking about, okay, so what can people do now who are listening? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're on your podcast, so they've probably been practicing gratitude for a while, but I'll share with you some of the things that I work with people who are new to gratitude journals and expressing gratitude. Often I ask them to think about the thing that they cherish most in this world right now. So they say, oh, I don't know, I'm not really grateful for anything. So that if you change it a little and you say, well, what do you cherish most in this world? And oftentimes they'll say something like, it's usually a being, right? A person, an animal, something that they really feel a connection with. And then you can say, what is it about that being that person that you admire or cherish so much? And then they can share that with you. And then you can say, so when you think about gratitude and you think about this person and you're cherishing them, let's reframe it now. And if we say, so what are you grateful for? Then they can often express it in this terminology of gratitude. But a lot of people, they're not familiar with it. And it can be such a fabulous tool personally, but also professionally. There's research that shows that people at work, when they experience gratitude, when they express gratitude, they actually are more productive. They have more high quality connections. So learning how to do this for ourselves and then sharing it with colleagues is so important. And it's a way for us to, like you said, stack the gratitude. And when I've been working now with physicians through COVID and trying to get through the tough times, we talked about gratitude a lot. And many of them now are starting their meetings, their department meetings, their division meetings with other physicians, and they're going to talk about problems, patients, et cetera. They start with, what am I grateful for today? And that changes the whole setting of the meeting, because you're starting at a space of gratitude. So that's also something that people can do. I've done this with clients who are not physicians, but who are working for a healthier lifestyle. And what we've done there is at family dinners, you start the dinner with, what are you grateful for today? So these are some tips for people that maybe, as I say, are fairly new to expressing gratitude. Maybe for those of your listeners who are thinking about expanding it into their family structure or into their lives professionally, this could be ways to do that. In fact, I also know a colleague, another physician who's working as the head of a division in a hospital. And what he's done is there's a whiteboard outside the elevator, and the people can put on the whiteboard, it's a daily gratitude space. So you can put on, you can put on the whiteboard what you're grateful for. You don't put your name, you just put the item for which you feel gratitude up, or the person, or the project, whatever it may be, or the sunshine, bring it back to, Grandma Rose. You just put it up on the board. And that is a way of bringing gratitude into the workspace.
I love that. I've been talking with the hospital administrator in Savannah about incorporating gratitude into the hospital. And we were, she was talking about, I've created these things called gratitude stickies. So it's similar to what you're talking about, except you don't have to have a dry erase board. What the great thing is it has like 1, 2, 3 on it. So you can write what you're grateful for or who you're grateful for. And then you can stick it in a common space where you have a wall of people sharing what they're grateful for. And it's part of a daily practice. So if somebody was getting into gratitude, they could take, the great thing is they could take, 28 of these and they could do it for 28 days. And when you're done, you've got this wall of stuff you can actually walk up to remind yourself, right? Again, like the reminder to go, it becomes its own like gratitude artwork on the wall. But I love this. I love the making gratitude like a common space somewhere in an office. I mean, for example, these stickies, she's even going to use these for the people that do 5 to 10 days where they actually have to be in the hospital. So when they're doing these morning meetings, the staff's going to hand them each a sticky, and it'll be their desire or not if they want to write on it. But when they do, they can stick it in this common area. And then again, like you're building, the cool thing about that is you're building this wall, right? And what happens is when somebody walks in, it creates the space. Right. just the physicality of it creates the space. It's almost, it's almost like it's powerful imagery, Right. I think anybody can incorporate that with I love dry erase board. It's a great idea. Chalkboard or even sticky cards on the wall.
Yeah. I like the sticky notes a lot. And of course, in the area of, in the time of COVID, if you're using the dry erase, you want to have the dry
yeah.
that have already been used, and they go in a jar, and then the fresh dry erase, and then you need to go through the process of cleaning those. You don't want to necessarily be sharing that right now, but the sticky notes you could do quite easily. Again, with a fresh pen and all that. I'm just trying to be aware.
Right, of course, yeah. Safety first.
of everything. But I really like the sticky note idea, in that you can almost plaster an entire wall with that, and you can just keep on going. That's a really nice idea. I'm glad you shared that.
Oh, you're welcome. When I start getting the pictures, I've already got the gratitude stickies developed that we're deciding on the colors for them. And as soon as I start using it, I'm going to get images of it. So I'm really excited. When that time comes, I'll definitely share it with you. I'm trying to build out ideas that can travel and go anywhere. But that, I'll tell you what's really cool about that idea actually came from, I had a guest on the podcast, and I asked him some of their, like, what do you do daily? And he said that when he wrote down what he was grateful for, he would do it on a 3x5 card, and he put it in his pocket so that he could walk around with it all day. And I was like, wow, I was thinking, isn't that a great idea? So therefore it's in your pocket, then that's where that idea thought. I was thinking, well, if you can write down something, and then how can we put it somewhere you're just going to see it? And it was like, okay, I think a sticky card will work great for that. So we'll see how it goes.
I like that a lot. That sounds terrific. And I look forward to hearing about the updates and seeing the photographs, like you said.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know you did a great job of answering a bunch of the questions I didn't ask, even though we had that list of questions.
Right. Yeah, it all came out, hopefully.
Oh, no, it was great. I didn't know, I only got a couple more minutes here. I didn't know if you'd like to speak a little to your, to the book, The Lifestyle Medicine Handbook. Would you like to share a little bit about that? Or?
Sure. So I don't get any proceeds from this book. All the proceeds go to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Mm-hmm. And the book itself is about those pillars of lifestyle medicine I mentioned originally: exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress resiliency, social connection, and then substance use, moderation, or elimination. Those are our 6 pillars in lifestyle medicine. And the book goes through some live and learns. So examples of where I was counseling patients in these areas, and mm-hmm. what was effective, what was less effective. It also has all the data, all the research, all the different studies that have been done that show that exercise is just like medicine. And in fact, there's a gratitude space. There's a chapter called Positively Positive, and I review a lot of the gratitude research in that chapter. And it's available on Amazon. It's called the Lifestyle Medicine Handbook. Beth Frates and John Bonnet, Rich Joseph, and Jim Peterson and I are the co-authors. If you just Googled Lifestyle Medicine Handbook and Beth Frates, Frates, it would pop right up, and you could get it also in an ebook version as well as a hard copy. And hopefully it will help you to lead a healthy life, to adopt and also sustain healthy habits for a lifetime.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes for that. And if people want to reach out to you, is the best place your website?
Yep, the website or Twitter. That's the social media platform I use mostly. It's at Beth Frates MD.
Okay, well, I'll make sure I put those in the show notes. And thanks for sharing a little more about your book. I definitely want to read those. I'm excited to read about the gratitude studies that you looked at, and that sounds like that'd be a really great. Even somebody I was talking to this morning, he's working on our thesis around gratitude. I'm sure that's something that, being you've done all the work for compiling, I'm sure it's fantastic. Well,
hopefully it will be useful. That's the idea. If it's useful, I'm happy. I'm grateful.
All right. Well, you're sharing good stuff. So, I mean, as long as somebody's, I'm sure it's useful. I mean, you're explaining, I don't know exactly what you went through, but if people have done studies, I think that some people need to look at the scientific stuff, that's to bend their mind around, oh, okay, this is something I can look into. So I think it's a powerful tool. So I'm sure it's beneficial. Don't want to play it down.
Well, yeah. So actually, if you do happen to get it and you have feedback, I'd love to receive the feedback. And thank you very, very much, Chris, for having me on your show today. And I hope that people who are listening
are able to take away some new nuggets around gratitude.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Beth. I had a wonderful time. Thank you for your time, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. So I'm Chris with Dr. Beth, just stay grateful.